Hey everybody. So, watching the New York Islanders and the New York Rangers currently sit in playoff spots and Vancouver currently sitting in a playoff spot, it really made me think that there really aren't bad teams in the NHL the way that there are in other sports. Now, obviously there are last place teams. Somebody has to finish last. And not every team is good by any stretch of the imagination, but hockey in the NHL just don't seem to have bad teams the way that other sports do. When you look at like the NBA, for example, and just this season, you have the Hawks and the Cavs with LeBron gone, the Suns with like 2 or 3 wins each. Really bad, atrocious teams. You look at Major League Baseball this past season, the Baltimore Orioles. They finished like 60-something games behind first place. The Miami Marlins, the New York Mets absolutely sucked. The Kansas City Royals. Baseball is full of bad teams. The NFL, you have teams like the Oakland Raiders and Arizona Cardinals and San Francisco 49ers, New York Giants, with 1 or 2 wins each. They are awful. They stink. Hockey doesn't really have that. Teams that we thought were going to be bad are playing okay. There's no team that with only 1 or 2 wins. Everybody's at least won 5 games. The NHL is just different, and it's great. That's what makes the NHL special. I did the video earlier in the year about how anyone can beat anyone on a given night. And it's really becoming true. It's been extremely true so far this season. The parity in the league is unbelievable. The worst team in the league right now is the LA Kings at 5-11-1, and they're missing their top 2 goaltenders. They're missing, the Kings aren't great, and they were having a rough year before Jonathan Quick got hurt. But Jonathan Quick, if he had stayed healthy, I'd be willing to bet they'd be better than 5-11-1 right now. And they're the worst team in the league. That's the worst record in the NHL. Everyone else is right around 500 or better. There are very few teams in the NHL under 500. And you don't see that in any other sport. There are no atrocious teams. There's no team that you look at and go, they don't even belong in the league. When I look at teams like the Oakland Raiders in football or the Baltimore Orioles in baseball, I'm like, they don't even belong in the league. They would lose to a minor league team or a college team. They don't even belong here. Hockey does not have those atrocious teams that don't belong in the league. And it's become very apparent this season. If you look at currently the worst team in the Eastern Conference right now is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They're 7-7-3. They're 500 and they are in last place in the Eastern Conference. Second to last place team, New Jersey Devils, 8-8-1, 500 again. 500 in football means you're in the hunt for a playoff spot. 500 in baseball means that you're in third place and potentially going for a late season push for a wild card spot. 500 in basketball means you're a 7 or 8 seed in the playoffs. 500 in hockey, you're in last place in the conference if you're the Pittsburgh Penguins. Out west, like I said, the Kings are the worst team out west. I put a star next to them because they are the closest thing the NHL has to a bad team. They're 5-11-1. They lost again last night. They're not a good team. But by saying that the NHL has no bad teams, I'm not saying that everybody is good. There are some very mediocre teams. There are absolutely some mediocre teams. But there's no atrocities. There's no teams that are absolute jokes. There's no teams that you laugh at and go into a game with them guaranteed a win. The Kings are the worst team and they still have 5 wins. They beat 5 teams. They won 5 games. You can't go into a game against the Kings and not show up because they will beat you. They're not very good right now. They're on their 3rd and 4th string goaltenders and they'll still beat you. St. Louis is in second to last place in the Western Conference right now. They were expected to be a playoff team this year. They're 6-7-3, one game under 500, and they're in second to last place. And then if you look at teams that were expected to be bad this year, these were teams that myself and I would say a majority of people didn't expect much from this season. The New York Islanders, they are 10-6-2. We thought they were going to be a bad team without John Tavares. They're 10-6-2 and in second place in the Metro Division. The New York Rangers, they're a rebuilding team. They're supposed to be bad. They're 9-8-2 and in third place in the Metro Division. Ottawa, they were supposed to be a laughingstock. Ottawa was supposed to be the joke of the NHL, not the LA Kings. The Senators were supposed to be the joke of the NHL. They're a 500 team. They're 8-8-3. If they played in the NBA, 8-8 would get you an 8th seed in the playoffs. They're not terrible. Detroit, they're a rebuilding team that's really in a rough patch these last couple of years. Last year and this year. They're 8-9-2, one game under 500. Out west, Arizona and Vancouver were supposed to be the two bad teams out west. Not ready yet. Young teams who aren't ready yet. Arizona's 9-8-1, a game above 500, and Vancouver's 10-9-2 in a playoff spot in the Pacific Division. They're one game over 500 and have played a lot of games. Points-wise, they're in a playoff spot in the Pacific Division. None of these teams I would quantify as bad. Now, Detroit is probably the closest. Detroit and Ottawa aren't great. But they're playing 500 hockey right now. That's not bad. They're mediocre teams. They're not going to be... Some of them aren't going to be playoff teams. Like, Ottawa's not going to make the playoffs. Detroit's not going to make the playoffs. The Kings aren't going to make the playoffs. But they're not terrible the same way that last place teams and struggling teams in other sports are terrible. So when you look at the NHL, there really aren't bad teams. There's no jokes of teams. Because your worst teams in the league, with the exception of the Kings, they're right around 500. So, hockey is just different. And the league is much closer than other leagues are. There's much more parity in the NHL than in other sports leagues. And it's awesome. And it means anyone can beat anyone on a given night. And it makes the league really fun to watch. I don't go into a game when the Bruins are playing Ottawa. And I expect the Bruins to win that game. But you can't go into it thinking this is a done deal before the puck's even dropped. When somebody plays Detroit, they still have to play the game. You know, they can't go into it thinking we've already got this game in the bag because Detroit stinks. They're not a great team. They're a rebuilding, struggling franchise right now. But they're 8-9-2. They're only one game under 500. And that's the greatness of the NHL. So there aren't really any laughingstock bad teams in this league, and that is different from any other league in pro sports in the United States. So that's what I've got on that. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media, check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support Off the Wall Hockey, the link to our Patreon page is also in the description. If you would like to buy Off the Wall Hockey merch, store is open. Link is in the description, so be sure to check that out. Got the new design up today with the same logo as our profile picture on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So that logo is now on merch and available for purchase in the store. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.